Good afternoon and welcome everybody to today's webinar, which is called Unlocking Success, Harnessing the Potential of Review Websites for Legal Firms webinar. This is a topic that I personally feel quite strongly about. My company, DG Legal, has used review websites, primarily Google, but then we started to get a little bit concerned that the number of reviews we've had is a little high. We always worried that people might think they're a little fake. So we've been in the process of moving really from Google over to Trustpilot, which is one of the, if not the biggest online review website in the world. So I'm really pleased that this afternoon we have got Graham Wilkinson from Trustpilot, Roy Magara from Magara Law, and Adam Hall from ReviewSolicitors. Now you can see that there are four of us in the room. I will not spend too long on my section. I just want to talk a little bit about the SRA. Roy is going to speak about his experience and his amazing success, which in part is due to review sites. Very pleased that Graham is speaking on behalf of Trustpilot, and as I said, Adam from ReviewSolicitors. The most common question that we get asked on every webinar is, can I have a copy of the slides? Yes, of course, you'll get a copy of the slides tomorrow. In terms of questions, chat, etc., please pose your questions and we shall answer your questions after the speakers have finished their slots. So, interest in online reviews has really increased since the SRA published some research in June of last year. There was a very long document that they published, which I'll briefly mention in a few moments, but there was also a survey that accompanied that research. And the research from last June showed that many people are now using online reviews to inform decisions in their lives. And I think if we think of all of us, we all look at review websites in one way or another, don't we? Whether it's Google reviews, Amazon, Trustpilot, ReviewSolicitors, etc. It's become a part of our life. And in that survey, 92% of people agreed that review websites are helpful for people needing to find legal services. And law firms in the SRA's survey confirmed that increasing numbers of clients got in touch after reading online reviews. So I guess the conclusion from that is that review websites are here to stay. And if we simply just ignore them, it's really just sticking your head in the sand. So we've really got to think about these sites and decide whether or not you're going to engage with them. Now, in the SRA's research, there was a number of helpful statistics. And I thought one of the most interesting ones was the perceived benefits of using a review website. So you can see from the slide that 66% of people felt that they do result in attracting new clients. 56% said that they reassure clients about the quality of the provision of legal services. 53% said it was an indicator of good performance, and 39% identifying areas for improvement, and 20% supporting staff performance reviews. So I won't read the remainder of the slide. You can see it in front of you. I have to say that since DG Legal started using review sites quite heavily, the number of inquiries has gone up by 3- or 4-fold, I would say. So it's certainly been a good experience for us, and a number of our clients would say the same. And when we get to Roy, we can hear about Roy's experience, because that is really quite remarkable. So we go over to Graham, who is going to kick off about collecting reviews. Graham.
David, thanks for that introduction. And yeah, I think you've set it up quite nicely, really. From my own experience, it's quite interesting looking at the legal sector and how, as an industry, reviews are sort of adopted within the sector. My background is primarily from an e-commerce perspective, where in reality, reviews have been mandatory for the last maybe like 10, 15 years. They've been a part of that customer journey. And it's very, very rare in this day and age that you get an organization that specifically sells online that doesn't have a review platform, doesn't work with a review platform. But what we're also seeing at Trustpilot is year on year, we're seeing growth in our legal sector category. And by that, what I mean is we're having more businesses who operate within the legal sector reviewed within that category. And we're having more organizations within that category come on board with Trustpilot and work with us in any sort of capacity. So it is interesting to see it grow. The legal sector is at a different stage of its journey to traditional e-commerce. But a few sort of fundamentals that we're going to go through. I'm going to start off with a couple of slides here in terms of collecting reviews and harnessing it from a sales perspective. The first thing I've put there is don't be afraid to ask everyone for a review. And what I mean by this is it isn't just like, so everything starts with the collection of a review. If you don't collect a review, you don't have a review, you can't use the review, you can't learn from the review. There is a tendency for business owners, and I'm not stereotyping this to the legal industry, but there is a tendency for people to say, okay, well, we want to cherry pick who we ask for a review because we know that from this person we may get some really positive feedback, from this person we may get some negative feedback, and we only really want to focus on the positive feedback because that's what we want other people to see. Now, there's a good and a bad aspect to that. And at Trustpilot specifically, we firmly encourage and stand by the fact that every single client of yours should be asked for a review. And the reasons behind that are, firstly, it creates a much more trustworthy and transparent insight into your organization. But for your perspective, it means that you get a full picture as to what your clients are saying. And from that, you're able to learn from it. There's a continuous cycle of asking for a review, having that review placed, reading that review, learning from that review, taking that feedback on board and utilizing it in order to make change within your business that can hopefully drive more positivity and more reviews further down the line. When it comes to asking for that review, it's really easy to try and be as specific as possible with what you're actually asking for. I firmly understand that it is not everything that you work with your clients on is within your control. And sometimes what happens is when you ask for a review, the feedback that you actually get given against you could be about something that's completely outside of your control. So to that, what we say is when it comes to collecting reviews, the email that you send out, if it is via an email, there's lots of other mediums that you can use in this day and age. But when you do that, the wording of how you ask for that review is really, really important. It's always wise to acknowledge the process that you go through with your clients. And then you can pick out a few key aspects of that journey that you can specifically ask for a review on. A lot of the time, prospective clients of yours, when they are searching for yourselves online, they may be looking at things like customer service. They may be looking at things like price. They could be key drivers to new business for you. And they could be the specific topics that you actually reach out and ask for those reviews about. And then finally, what I've put there in terms of collecting reviews is about being strategic with the timing of when you ask for a review. So review platforms in this day and age are very dynamic. And an example I always use outside of the legal industry, I'm afraid, but is if you owned a business that sold lawnmowers and you sold a lawnmower in November, would you ask for a review for that lawnmower straight away? Or would you wait until May or June or July when you know it's been used and you know you're much more likely going to get a rounded perception of that product or that service? For legal industries, again, it's very, very strategic around when you actually ask for that review. I can't really give any advice on this. It's very much down to yourselves as individuals and as businesses. But the point I'm making is around trying to increase that percentage of review request to review placed and thinking through the actual timings of that email being triggered, or again, whatever medium you use to ask for that review, is a really clever thing to look into, and it can increase that percentage of conversion quite significantly. David, can I ask you to move to the next slide, if that's okay, please? Thank you very much. when people ask me what is, like, why should they have a review platform? The main thing that springs to mind is always about reputation management. It's always about ensuring that you're owning your online reputation. And in this day and age, so many people are searching for organizations, searching for businesses, searching for services online, that unless you pay close attention and really give the love that your online reputation needs and deserves, you're going to lose out to competitors. The next aspect that sort of ties into that is about increased business and how a review platform can actually aid that. It's not something that many people think of straight away, but the element of social proof is a really important one when it comes to people searching for organizations online. And what I mean by social proof is about conformity. It's about that age-old sort of element of, as human beings, we like to tread the well-trodden path. We like to go where others have been before us. The example I always use is if you're on holiday and you want to go for a drink, and there's two bars in front of you, and one of them looks really good from the outside, but there's nobody in it. Whereas the next bar is a little bit run down, but there's loads of people in there and they're all having a good time. And you think, which one would I rather go into? You tend to follow the crowd. And that's what social proof allows you to do. And reviews, they're not the only form of social proof. So testimonials and awards, things like that convey that element of confidence. But what reviews do within social proof is they allow your previous customers to tell your prospective customers how great you are at what you do, what a wonderful service you offer, how well priced you are, how great you are to deal with. And they allay any fears that prospective customers have about jumping into that ether, into that unknown, and picking up the phone or submitting an inquiry to start that process of working with you. And utilizing reviews in your social proof and harnessing that through, whether it is online on your website, whether that be through like direct mail campaigns, whether that be through social media campaigns. It's instant trust that you're embedding into those assets, which is extremely valuable. And it's a really, really key driver to people, like I said, picking up that phone or submitting that first inquiry to start the journey of working with you. Next, I'm just going to touch quickly on the lifetime value of your clients. Again, this is quite unique to the legal industry. It's completely different within standard e-commerce, but within the legal industry, you guys have direct access, or majority of you would have direct access to your clients, and you get to build rapport with them through there as well. One aspect that allows you to do that through the medium of reviews is the reply to a review, and how powerful that is of a form of building an element of a connection, even if it is just saying thank you or acknowledging that somebody's gone out of their way to leave you a review. The reply to a review is a key driver in creating that connection between yourselves as a business and a client as a customer. And it helps to drive up that lifetime value. It helps to drive repeat business. It helps to actually create positive sentiment, which again can be passed on from person to person. And then finally, before I wrap up, attracting new clients. So letting your clients do your marketing for you. This is about the voice of your customers, the voice of your clients. It's about harnessing that voice and allowing that voice to actually speak about your business on your behalf. It's so powerful. Like in the past, like 20 years ago, all marketing would have come from internal teams within a business. Whereas in this day and age, by actually utilizing a review platform and taking previous customers' sentiments and surfacing them for prospective customers, it just creates that element of conversion, that increased conversion rate, which again, for the third time, is increasing that likelihood of people submitting that email or picking up the phone and opening up that dialogue to start working with you. And that is it from me, David.
Thank you, Graham. And again, thank you, David, for the introduction earlier. So, yeah, I just want to touch upon the topic of building positivity. And as you can see in my slide, this topic comes down to, creating a reviews culture within the firm, and the benefits of also individual solicitors or any individual members of the law firm being able to collect their own reviews, under the umbrella of the law firm. And this is what review sites would allow your individuals at the firm to do. So not only can you collect reviews for the firm, but as mentioned, the individuals at the individual solicitors, at the firm can collect the reviews, under the umbrella of the firm. And in practice, this means that you as a firm will have the opportunity to, recognise individuals for their outstanding work, which will often be noticed on a daily, day-to-day basis. Immediate managers, of colleagues might hear about, a thank you card that someone has received, but this happens on such a micro level that fee earners, from my experience, don't necessarily go out their way to think that I want another thank you card with the next client. So collecting reviews on a third-party platform allows a unique opportunity when it comes to collecting reviews in the legal services. And as a firm, by reinforcing the positive behaviours associated with reviews, i.e., managers and senior managers, recognising the 5-star reviews that come in for the fee earners, the fee earner is able to place more value in their service that they are delivering, because they will want to stand out for the great work that they are doing. And this is because the reviews are public for potential clients and the entire firm to see. And you'll be surprised how a one-line email recognizing a fee earner coming from the partner or managing partner, it does go a long way in terms of helping fee earners feel noticed, which results in more motivation to drive further positive reviews. And also, allowing clients to or potential clients to see that the firm is actively collecting client reviews, in a public environment, also helps provide, reassurance that they'll be listened to. Purchasing legal services is often a distressed purchase, and knowing that you can, leave a review and that you'll be heard, helps provide that subtle comfort that, the firm is personable. This reassurance is often a factor that law firms forget, when designing their website and their online presence. And the positivity of this type tends to breed more positivity from anybody on the outside looking in. I know of anecdotal feedback from firms that have adopted such a culture, and the successes that it has had. And a firm I know has an incentive program for their lawyers and solicitors. So when they, receive good reviews in a month, or whether it be whoever collected the most 5-star reviews in a month, there'll be an incentive on offer. It doesn't have to be anything big, of course, a bottle of champagne or something along those lines.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. So we'll move on to me. Greetings, everyone, and a real pleasure to be here. And thank you as well, David, for the introduction. So I'm going to be speaking from a different perspective, and that's going to be about negative review management. And I think hopefully it's going to be worthwhile hearing that from me as someone who is sort of in the game, as it were, as a solicitor. And I think speaking from personal experience would be a really good place to start. And while, of course, I won't mention names, but one can do their own research in their own time. And I highly value the reviews from every single customer, whether they're good, bad, or ugly, as it were. Every single one is an opportunity to learn and to grow. But the reality is, the impact of negative reviews can be quite detrimental to a firm. Bad news spreads. We know often that bad news spreads quicker than good news, unfortunately. Um, there was an article that I read recently which stated that about 84% of people trust online reviews as much as personal recommendations. That's significantly high, 84%. And it brings the reality that if your trusted family member or friend gave you negative feedback about a business that you were considering, then of course you're unlikely to go there yourself. 84% is quite high. Of course, the converse of that is that if you get a positive review, then that is equally great news for your firm in terms of potential business coming in. But the reality equally about bad news spreading too is that that can affect your search ranking. If a business may have, or a firm may have more negative reviews than positive ones, then it's likely to see a drop in its search engine rankings, and that makes it harder for potential customers to find them. And from a personal experience perspective, the firm had a negative review. They're usually fairly long, the negative ones. They're usually much longer than the positive ones. But we had a negative review from a client, and somewhat needless to say, or suffice to say, I disagreed with every single point. But there is a good and a not so good way about responding to these reviews, and I'll touch on that in a short while. But the reality of that is that not too long after that, we had another inquiry from another unrelated customer altogether. And somewhat understandably, one of their concerns was, oh, by the way, I'm a little bit concerned because I saw this particular review and it mentioned A, B, C, D, E, F, G. What was that about? And that was an opportunity to be quite open and transparent. And I'll talk about transparency later about the reviews. And on that particular occasion, we didn't win that client in the end. And that's a simple reality of negative reviews. But that's just one very short chapter. And we came back from that. And I'll talk about coming back from negative reviews in a moment too. First thing I want to talk about before sort of curing, as it were, is prevention. How do we mitigate negative feedback? And the first thing that I'd say, and I say this to my team, well, I'd say this to anyone who has a team, empower your team, empower your staff, empower them to be friendly, to be knowledgeable, to be empathetic, to turn up as themselves to work and do a great work for your clients, who are the ones indeed who end up leaving you the reviews. If your staff are trained to follow up with customers until their issues are resolved, if your team is confident in terms of their communication, if your staff are empowered to make decisions and offer solutions that can satisfy your customers, and most importantly, as far as I'm concerned, show your customers that you as a firm are there for them and that you actually value and care about their problems, then absolutely that's a brilliant way in terms of mitigating negative feedback. Because the reality is, most people will expect you as lawyers or your team to know the law. It's a given. No one, at least in their right mind, would go to a law firm they expect to be incompetent. So they expect the foundational stuff. But it's what's that extra sauce, what's that extra spice that gets them from just meeting their expectations to succeeding them. And so in that case, what I will then talk about is how do we make a comeback from negative reviews? How did I make a comeback from my own negative review? And I think if I could put it in a sentence, it would be take it out of the spotlight. If your customers are frustrated, they will write dozens of replies that show a negative attitude towards your firm. They just will. They're frustrated. We're emotional creatures. It's somewhat natural. But from my perspective, to resolve a conflict, the shift of the conversation needs to move from whatever the review site might be or social media site, etc., to another place. And preferably that place is a private space. Ask that customer, ask that client to email you directly, call your customer support directly. But absolutely, from my own perspective, don't start battling with words in a comment thread. It will only make you look bad. And how I dealt with my own negative review was quite simple. What I personally put as far as my reply was, aside from the apologies that you ended up feeling this way, given the service that you received, but to me, my thought process is to everyone else who's going to end up reading this naturally, I would rather them look at all the other hundreds of really good reviews from plenty of people that are there rather than focus on the one negative review. So in the short term, there's that understandable negative effect from that negative review, but at least people are signposted elsewhere, and that negative review itself is taken out of the spotlight. So those are the three things I wanted to touch on at this point as far as negative review management is concerned. I'm going to pass on to the next slide for seamless integration.
Thank you, Roy. So this topic from me really, we've spoken already about the importance of collecting reviews, which they are, but there is another side to that coin, and is you're collecting all these great positive reviews. you do need to showcase those in the right way as well at the same time. So, you know, how I'm going to get this, you know, excellent feedback that I've been receiving, you know, how am I getting it in front of, you know, potential clients? And, you know, it's quite a natural thing to do in this day and age, that if somebody was to receive a recommendation to use a law firm, whether it be from a family or a friend, you know, that person would then, you know, type in the name of the law firm into Google, maybe look at their reviews, currently what they can see on the Google page. But you know, they would also refer back to the law firm's website. Maybe they are looking at who they need to speak with, you know, who's the solicitor at the law firm that I want to, you know, talk to. And, you know, they do tend to say that the most visited part of a law firm's website is a meet the teams page. So, yeah, just to quickly touch upon, you know, how, or the importance of making sure that these reviews are, you know, going in front of the right clients, in particular on a law firm's website. Again, just from my kind of experience, you know, potential clients may not believe, you know, hand-picked testimonials on a website. Now, we're not saying that don't put testimonials on your website. Again, it's very important to do, but you know, to kind of seamlessly convince clients, you know, you must show transparency, integrity, and reassurance. And you know, third-party independent reviews on your website, you know, can provide all of this. So, typically, testimonials widget is one of the best ways to display client reviews on your website. You know, a lot of law firm websites that I've seen over the years, you know, can generally tend to say the same thing a lot of the time, you know, experts in that field, which is absolutely right. But it's kind of, how would you separate yourselves from other law firms that, you know, do claim that they, you know, are experts in that field like yourself? And, you know, I've yet to come across a website that maybe would say, you know, we're not too bad, maybe try somebody else, if you can kind of see where I'm going. So, you know, using a third-party widget to display your latest reviews, you know, would carry more weight compared to what's already on the website. And, you know, as Graham mentioned earlier about social proof, it will also, you know, provide that social proof that potential clients, you know, they would like to see, you know, what they would like to see when researching a firm that they are looking to instruct. The idea is to display reviews on landing pages, essentially. So incorporate reviews directly onto, you know, the relevant landing pages, such as, you know, practice area pages, lawyer profiles, as I've alluded to at the start of this slide. And this provides visitors with, you know, again, the social proof specific to the services or the individuals that they're interested in. Individual solicitor widgets, you know, show potential clients what keywords have been said about that particular fee earner, or how other clients have described them. So in terms of communication style, you know, how approachable they were, etc. Another benefit of having reviews on your website is it can also help improve your SEO rankings, not to be forgotten. So, you know, this is because Google and other search engines place high importance on online reviews, you know, when determining, you know, where to rank businesses in their search results. And again, based on my experience working within in the industry, you know, I have observed that firms, you know, maybe lacking a client feedback strategy or a digital reputation have evolved into firms with a strong digital presence by, you know, initiating a feedback collection process, which more importantly showcases these reviews in the right ways, like on a website. And that's from me. That's everything from me.
Thank you, Adam. Back to me. Transparency matters. So there are three sort of headings that I want to use just to talk about this particular section of the webinar. Who are the reviews for, really? What are customers thinking? And how to turn transparency into an asset. So starting with the first one, who are the reviews for, really? And I think the reality is, while a lot of people may just section themselves into sort of one of three camps, they're for the firm itself, they are for the board, or the partners, or they're for the customers. But why not all three? I mean, the reality is, first and foremost, is that it's worth noting that brand transparency can mean different things to different firms. And so the practical reality of this is going to vary depending on the area of law. From my perspective, what's important to a family law firm and its clients is going to be different to what's important to a company and commercial firm, and so on and so forth. According to a consumer good forum that I read recently, it talked about there being sort of three elements to a transparent brand or company, in this case a firm. And the first one was to do with corporate practice. In other words, the brand is supposed to communicate, or the reviews are supposed to communicate, the firm's policies and performance clearly to experts. In other words, it answers the question, how is this company progressing? Where is this company going? And the way that reviews can help provide that to the corporate practice as a whole is that it helps people understand what is our messaging to everyone else, and how do we train one another to be congruent in that messaging. The second element of that, from my perspective, is product proof. In other words, review transparency helps communicate that brand proof to customers. Or I suppose it answers the question, what is the impact of people coming to this firm? Other customers who have been here, Graham talked about, for example, people generally prefer to tread where others have trodden. What's the impact of what I am going to purchase from this particular firm, of the service that I'm going to get from this other firm? And then the third element to that is brand promise. How do you as a firm communicate your values and beliefs to customers, and how do those reviews reflect those values and beliefs to others? Do those values and beliefs align with the values of other prospective clients who can come your way? The next point I wanted to highlight as far as the subheading is concerned, as you can see there, is what exactly are customers thinking? And I read a rather interesting article, cynical in nature, but actually I quite enjoyed its take on it. And in brief, what it was saying was that typically customers who have never heard of your firm have a healthy dose of skepticism. And sometimes that can even border upon distrust. They don't know if you can deliver, they're concerned about price, they're concerned about quality, they're concerned about what they're going to be receiving. They might even be skeptic about the reviews that you currently have, amongst other things. And for some customers, this article was saying that sometimes the skepticism persists even once the client is familiar with your law firm, since they see other firms as trying to get the most money from them, or too concerned about targets or otherwise. And so to me, I personally took it on as a challenge, quite frankly, as far as my own firm is concerned, because it's helpful to see that people who come to you as a law firm, indeed, they don't know you from Adam. You can think you've got the best customer service in the world and reputation in the world, but the way that reviews help is, again, coming back to that social proofing, allowing people to reduce their level of skepticism or indeed even distrust, and it helps them approach you even more. And that leads me on to my last point. How do we turn transparency into an asset? And I think this links into that's kind of wrapping point to what both Graham and Adam and David has discussed. Organizations or firms, from my perspective, need to be prepared to address any potential issues related with their operations or the service that they provided, anything that comes out from disgruntled customers or otherwise when it comes to reviews and feedback. And as has been touched upon by various people today, in order to do this effectively, firms will typically need to be able to monitor and respond quickly when necessary, while maintaining transparency, total openness, honesty with both the stakeholders but also clients and prospective clients as a whole. As far as disputes are concerned, it comes back to that point that I highlighted earlier: resolve them fairly, resolve them quickly, take the spotlight off you as a firm. And doing things this way in the spirit of transparency will genuinely help prevent any damage to a firm's reputation in the long run. Thank you. David, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, we've got some questions coming. For those that are watching, please do put your question in the Q&A or the chat, because whilst we have got a few questions, we have time to answer more. So I'm going to have one question for each of the three of you. I'm going to start with Roy. So proof is in the eating the pudding, Roy. How many reviews have you got? And the follow-up question from that is, what percentage of your new clients do you think are generated via these review sites?
Sure, thank you. How many reviews do I have? I am going to look very exceptionally quickly, and I'll come back to you to that. So I'll answer your second question first, if I may, and then I'll come back to your latter one. reviews have had an exceptionally positive effect on the firm. I would suggest probably about 80% of the firm's business comes through reviews. We are a fairly young firm in the grand scheme of reality. We'll be 4 years this September. We've had over 300 client reviews so far. I'll probably say 99.9 of them are 5 out of 5, apart from that one negative review I told you about earlier. So reviews have had. I am a big proponent for reviews and people walking where others have trod, as it were. They've had a great impact on my firm.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much indeed. So next question, a couple of questions that were sent in before the webinar started. This one I'd like Graham to answer, because I think this would be quite a common thought or question in people's minds. Question is as follows: how can it be right for firms to be listed on sites where they haven't given their consent, and therefore don't monitor these sites for reviews that may have been left, in particular responding to poor reviews, or might have requests to be removed, being rejected?
Yeah, so that's something that comes up quite regularly with Trustpilot. We are what we call an open platform, and that basically means that anybody who has an online experience or has an experience with an organization can leave a review for that organization on the Trustpilot platform, regardless as to whether a business has set up their own profile on Trustpilot. And by that, what I mean is, let's say if a new business has started trading, and me as a consumer, I have an interaction with that business. I buy something from them. If they don't have any presence on Trustpilot, I can go onto Trustpilot and I can leave my review. I can type in their website domain, and that would create their profile for them. Now, we live and die by this. We believe that this is the right thing to do for consumers. It basically means that we give consumers that space to actually voice their feedback, whether it be good, whether it be bad. And that is the reason why Trustpilot is probably the most trusted, the largest review platform out there. We get 50 million visitors to our website every month, and we are within the top 1% of most visited websites within the UK. And we believe it is that trust and that transparency that our platform enables us to build, which is what drives consumers to that site, because they know when they come to Trustpilot that they are going to see an accurate picture of an organization, rather than a picture that an organization has been able to manipulate in some way, shape, or form. So that sometimes doesn't sit well with businesses, and we hear those points time and time again, David, and we do everything we can to try and defend ourselves and defend the way that Trustpilot is set up as an organization. But all we're trying to do is give an accurate picture to past, present, and current consumers when it comes to how a business interacts with its customers.
Okay, that's very helpful, Graham. I'm going to ask Adam a kind of follow-up question. So we've heard from Graham that any member of the public can set up a review about a particular law firm without their consent, etc. What about review solicitors? Is it the same with review solicitors, or does the firm have to set up the account?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of kind of go on the back of what Graham said, and Graham, I think articulated this point very well. It comes down to to promote transparency within the legal sector. I mean all of this knowledge is available to any member of the public. Don't forget, with law firms being listed on the SRA register, and we do have a live feed with the SRA, so that would mean that every law firm that's registered within the SRA within the UK would have a profile on our website. And it also comes back to you was talking very briefly at the start of the conversation about the SRA, or the SRA's recent pilot. A pilot that we was invited to take part in, and they are obviously entrusting or recommending or promoting that law firms do now start engaging with online feedback. So we provide the necessary tools for law firms to begin that journey. Essentially, they can come to our website, they can register to take control of their profile page or profile pages that are on ReviewSolicitors, and be able to monitor and, you know, reply to reviews, report reviews, ask for reviews. So it's a very open, you know, kind of platform in that sense that, you know, there's no limitations that we give to law firms. You know, they're able to take control of their, you know, online profile page with ReviewSolicitors, and start monitoring and, you know, managing it that way.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Now, a bit more of a difficult question for you here, Adam.
Okay.
Why is ReviewSolicitors sales patter saying that using such sites is an SRA requirement?
Yeah, again, from you know, from my understanding, you know, it comes back again to the SRA pilot, and you know what the SRA are in essence trying to encourage law firms to now start doing. I mean, you know, it's not at the level where the SRA said to law firms you have to display your prices on the website. You know, it's not that level just yet. Whether it does get to that level, who knows? But yeah, at this stage, they're just, you know, essentially, as mentioned, you know, advising or promoting law firms to be as transparent as possible with review sites in general. So that's why, you know, when we advise law firms that they would have, you know, a presence on our website, you know, and it's something that from the SRA pilot scheme, you know, it's something that they're trying to encourage law firms to do. You know, this is how we can assist in that respect.
Okay, thank you. I want to turn my attention now to a webinar chat where Michelle has asked a question which has been answered by Adam and Graham, but I wanted to just push you on your answers really, because you've both given a very kind of company-friendly answer to the question. And you've kind of implied the answer is yes, but it isn't always yes, is it? Because if somebody puts a review in, which is criticising a law firm, that criticism may be fair, and there is nothing that the law firm can do to remove that unless it uses, for example, hate language. Agree?
Yeah, that's again, like, just to hark back to my previous point around transparency. The fact of the matter is, if you ask somebody for a review and they give you a review and you don't like that review, it's not a given that that review is going to be removed. Now, again, within your Trustpilot profile, when that review is placed, that review is there, it's in the ether, it's there in the public domain. People can see that review. If that review is deemed to break our terms and conditions, and by that what I mean is, for example, if somebody places a review against your organization who you've never ever done any business with, then obviously, like, we ask for evidence of that, and if evidence cannot be provided, that review can be challenged, can be removed. If there's ever any abusive language that's used, we have multiple terms and conditions that if a review breaks those terms and conditions, then obviously appropriate action can be taken on that review. But to stress your point, David, that is correct. It's not a good enough excuse to put your hand up and say, I don't really like this person's tone with me, or I don't believe what they're saying is fair, because it has to be an element of like, we can go back to that person for further evidence, but if they're able to actually substantiate those terms, then obviously that review will stay. So again, it's a brave decision to put your hand up as an organization and say, hey, look, we want to start collecting feedback. We want to start asking for reviews, and we understand the consequences of what we're doing here. The backing that you need to give yourself is that that you're doing something extremely well, and that the reviews that you're going to get are going to be overwhelmingly positive. And if they're not, the negative ones you're going to be able to learn from, and you're going to be able to get better as an organization. But also the benefits of harnessing those reviews and everything that Roy was talking about earlier about showcasing the reviews and using them to your advantage, those benefits are massively going to outweigh the negatives. But just a little bit of a side note on that as well is, from studies that we've done here at Trustpilot, for organizations that have over 1,000 reviews on their platform, the most trusted score associated, so we score businesses to 1 decimal place out of 5. The most trusted is 4.4. So what that tells us is people aren't looking online for businesses that have got immaculate reviews, like 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. They want to see a little bit of human characteristics. They want to understand how you react when things don't go well. And that's in the power of the response to the review. It showcases that, hey, look, at the end of the day, we're very good at what we do, and you can see that by our overall score, but we're not perfect. No business is perfect. But when we do make a mistake or when something does go wrong, this is how we react. This is how we counteract that. And this is what really showcases how great we are as an organization. Sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent there, David. But yeah, to your original point, yeah, it has to break our terms and conditions for a review to be review to be removed. But when that review is placed, it is placed out there in the public domain for other people to see.
Well, I think this is a really good time for me to mention our experience in terms of how we've managed to get negative reviews removed. So I'll talk first of all about a review from a few years ago that was posted on Google. Essentially, this chap who we didn't know and had never used us had confused us for Direct Line Legal. And many, many years ago, when Direct Line were seeking to trademark the name and what they were doing, etc., we objected, and we did say to Direct Line, please call yourselves Direct Line Legal, not DLG Legal, because otherwise we'll get lots of phone calls, reviews, etc. Which is exactly what happened. They continue to call themselves DLG Legal. We get phone calls, emails, etc. And then we had this really, really horrible review. And the only fortunate thing about this review is that this member of the public used hate language. I can't remember the exact word, but it was a pretty unpleasant word. So what you're supposed to do is flag the review for inappropriate content, which is what we did. And that's an automated process. We found that to be completely ineffective. So we wrote a letter to them, like, no response from Google. So then I got my partner, who is a solicitor. She used to work at Hurley Smith. She wrote to the legal director at Google, pointing out that using hate speech was a breach of their terms and conditions, and hey presto, that worked. So legal letters are the way to go, really, with Google, because as you can imagine, Google probably receives a huge amount of communication, and it probably doesn't respond to a very high proportion of that communication. So that's one tip there. The other one was just a couple of months ago. And this lady put a negative Google review, a negative Facebook review, and a negative Trustpilot review. And again, she referred to using solicitors. So we thought, oh, she's obviously mixed us up with somebody. And she mentioned, fortunately, the name of the solicitor to use. So I used the Law Society's Find a Solicitor database to find out who this person worked for. And guess what? She just got the letters mixed up the wrong way around. So she didn't mean DG Legal, she meant somebody else. So I wrote her asking her to remove the defamatory reviews and pointed out who I thought she had actually meant to refer to. And she was very apologetic and remorseful and removed those reviews within the hour. So, no harm was done. Next question. How does replying to a client review sit with client confidentiality? Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind. Again, I mean, we're a very big advocate of responding to reviews. We try and encourage all law firms, regardless of the review, whether it be the 5-star or a 1-star review, to leave a response to that review. And I suppose I could just quickly piggyback on, you were quickly talking about the negative reviews. Again, it could kind of sit with this category, but responding in something which is very simple and customer servicey does tend to go a long way. We give law firms the ability to choose pre-typed options. We give law firms the ability to type up their own response. Law firms can lean on their account manager at ReviewSolicitors to leave a response on their behalf. So responding to reviews doesn't affect that client confidentiality. We do allow clients of the law firm to leave reviews anonymously anyway. So there is nothing displayed in terms of, the client's full name, the client's email address. So all of that can be left anonymously, if that helps.
I'd like to also ask Roy to come in there, because Roy, you are a solicitor, so you will understand better than any of us about confidentiality. So how do you think that replying to a client review sits with client confidentiality?
Thank you, David. I'll happily continue the conversation where we left off. I think Adam raises a good point in terms of the way in which both the review and the reply to the review are left. yes, on the one hand, having the benefit of, or the option, rather, I should say, of anonymity is, from my perspective, really powerful and sometimes actually quite helpful for clients. With employment law being what I do, as opposed to maybe sometimes more sensitive matters. For example, it might be a family-related issue or a private client issue. From my perspective, the reviews that are left and the issue with confidentiality are not really to do with the actual confidential issues often of the actual matter itself. They're less to do with the content of the issue and more to do with how's the service of the firm. And that there's no confidentiality attached to that. There's no confidentiality attached to someone saying I've approached a law firm or dealt with a law firm. So it's absolutely fine for clients to do that. But indeed, if for whatever reason there are confidentiality clauses within some kind of settlement or deal or otherwise, where the individual literally has no choice to put themselves or recommend a firm out there blatantly like that, then anonymity is the only other option really, and that review being not really leading back to the matter at hand.
Okay, thank you very much. Now this next one will be for both Adam and Graham, so we'll go to Graham first. Who owns the reviews? So if one cancels the ReviewSolicitors membership or Trustpilot membership, would the reviews remain?
So the Trustpilot answer to that is yes, they would. So the reviews are owned on the Trustpilot platform. So the reviews are placed by consumers against an organization, but they are placed on Trustpilot's platform, so they would remain. So for example, if and we have this a bit where a business would collect reviews under one name and then they may rebrand, there is a way that those reviews can be merged if they do start collecting reviews under a different name, but otherwise the original reviews would remain. You don't get to decide when those reviews disappear or whether you can just have them wiped. They would stay on Trustpilot's platform. The only other thing I would add to that is between lots of different review platforms, you can take reviews with you. So if you do say, well, I work with one platform and I would like to go and change and work with another platform, there is a lot of agreements between different review platforms that mean you can take those reviews with you so that you never leave them. So you don't just build up a Trustpilot profile, and then if you move to a different review platform, you don't just lose everything else. There is a way that certain reviews can be taken from one to the other.
Yeah, it's exactly the same process, at ReviewSolicitors as well. So yeah, if a law firm is collecting reviews on ReviewSolicitors, so let's say, over a 12-month period, if they was to, leave or cancel their membership with ReviewSolicitors, any reviews that they've collected within that 12-month period would remain on ReviewSolicitors. So yeah, we wouldn't, wipe the slate clean. We wouldn't cancel those reviews. We wouldn't, bring those reviews down. So they would always remain on ReviewSolicitors as well. The only extra that I'll add on to this is it kind of goes back to one of the slides I was speaking about earlier. So if an individual solicitor at a law firm has collected their own reviews under the umbrella of the law firm and, said solicitor was to leave and join another law firm, those reviews that was collected by that individual whilst they was at your law firm, again, would stay to your law firm.
Okay, it's correct me if I'm wrong, Graham and Adam, but I think the position is different with Google, isn't it? Because you have your Google My Business account, etc. And if you got hammered, you could actually just delete it, couldn't you?
Yeah, I've come across that example before where a particular law firm was generally is from non-client reviews, which is very unfortunate because the law firm can't do anything, with those reviews, which you spoke about earlier. But yeah, law firms can just, unsubscribe with Google My Business, and that would remove those reviews straight away.
Okay, thank you. Next question. If we get to a position of all firms being rated as 5-star, which is clearly the aim, what will then be used to differentiate them? Graham, do you have an answer to that?
Without passing the baton, I'd like to hear Roy's answer to this.
Okay, fair enough.
Roy, if you put yourself in the position of all of you and your competitors being 5 stars, what would you do to differentiate yourself from?
Is very interesting about this question is that before the webinar, I thought to myself, we're clearly all here talking about reviews, and the whole point of talking about this in this way is to encourage others to get more reviews. And the reality is, there are going to be people in this call who are, technically speaking, competitors of my law firm, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm clearly giving advice to my competitors or to others to bump themselves up. But you know what? For me personally, speaking with my kind of business hat on now, I like a challenge. That's the whole point of it. The whole point is to encourage competition within the market and figure out. I think I talked about earlier about that kind of secret sauce, what actually separates us apart from the others. And from my perspective and from Magara Law's brand perspective, I'm not actually going to answer it in reality, but we do have what I would suggest is something that is quite particular to the firm that encourages people here, and that's quite unique to a number of the reviews that we leave. That is different to, I would suggest, most other law firms. So I suppose to directly answer the question, yeah, great. Every law firm here, the 5 stars is absolutely the target, but there needs to be a way for Joe Bloggs to figure out, okay, so how do I figure out who to go to? And to give you a bit of a hint, it goes back to the values and beliefs that I talked about earlier and how that is confidently and competently communicated to others.
Well, Roy, modest as always, let me answer the question for you as if I was you. I think another thing that you have done to differentiate yourself is, for example, speaking so well as you did at the SRA conference where I met you. And as you know, I was sufficiently impressed with you that I introduced you to a fascinating client with a fascinating legal case. And this particular person is just enormously grateful to me, regularly sends me messages to say, Roy is brilliant, Roy is outstanding. So pleased that you found this guide for me. So I think that's another example of how you've differentiated yourself. So thank you very much for that. Do we have any final questions or chat? I don't think we do. And it's
David, I'm just going to add one more point to Brian's question there at the end, is that it is the aim to everyone to be 5 stars. I would say it's very, very rare in this day and age. You have to work extremely hard to sort of cultivate that reputation and keep that reputation, especially if you're a growing business as well, to try and keep every single person on your books extremely happy that they would give you a 5-star review. But never ever be afraid not to receive a 5-star review. And just to give you an insight, I've just looked it up whilst Roy was answering the question, is that there's 1,400 organizations on our category for legal service providers, less than half of them have a score of 4.5 out of 5. So it's less than 50% that would be anywhere near 5 stars, which gives you a good insight into how difficult it is to sort of maintain those high levels. Sorry, that was just add that as a topic.
I mean, it comes back to transparency. I think, Graham, and I think you've put it very well that from the outside looking in, if I was looking at a law firm and they had 500 reviews all at 5-star, how believable is that? So it's kind of weird saying this, but sometimes the odd negative review can go a long way. It does have a great effect to to a potential client looking at the law firm, saying they're as transparent as possible, they're believable at the end of the day. So yeah, I'd agree with what Graham is saying there. So
okay, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Just to remind you, you will get a copy of the slides tomorrow. After this webinar finishes, which will be in a few moments' time, then you will be asked to post a review, Trustpilot review, and any words that you could offer in terms of feedback, suggestions would be very warmly welcomed. Now, we're going to take a break next week from doing webinars, but we're back the week after on the 12th of March, where we'll be talking about how to deal with complaints effectively. And we've got some very interesting speakers, including 2 members of our team. In fact, 1 member of our team used to be a senior manager at the Legal Ombudsman. We have 2 other people that are involved with running their law firms and have a huge amount of experience of dealing with complaints. So I very much hope that we'll see you there. thank you very much for attending, and I wish you all a very pleasant afternoon. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.